Street-level heroes are often overlooked, but some of them can bring even the biggest threats to their knees. Moon Knight, for example. Moon Knight is a reliable and diligent hero when it comes to protecting the innocent people traveling the streets at night. While Moon Knight more often than not explores the traumatized complexity of Mark Spector's dissociative identity disorder, making him one of Marvel's grittier street-level heroes, the origin of his powers as the first and high priest of the Egyptian moon god Khonshu make him actually an incredibly powerful supernatural hero as well. While we typically see him facing off against thugs or mercenaries from his past, we also see him face off against vampires, hell lords, Avengers level threats, and even single-handedly bringing some of the most powerful Avengers to their knees. Despite that, some of his best comic book moments are truly on the streets and come in Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood's run on the character, so definitely check that out if you have the opportunity. But speaking of Moon Knight, more recently Mark Spector actually found himself in the grave, and his mantle was taken up by Maximilian Coleridge, formerly known as Shroud. Max lost both of his parents right in front of him at the age of 10 years old, leading him to dedicate his life to combating crime. But unlike most heroes, Max actually went to law school, while also training as an Olympic level athlete and studying science. It was after graduating that he got really weird. Max joined the mysterious cult of Kali, where he became a master in a whole bunch of Asian martial arts and infiltration, but he also worshipped their dark goddess, Kali. When he had completed his training, Max was surprise branded with the Kiss of Kali, using a red-hot iron on his eyes, completely blinding him. But after the pain subsided, Max found that he had been granted a psychic perception that allowed him to see his environment within a radius of about 100 feet of him, even through solid walls. He would go into battle with his sanity, but got even more powerful as he gained Dark Force powers. As Moon Knight, though, he's somehow even edgier than Mark Spector was, and he looks so cool. Now, despite Hawkeye, Clint Barton, being one of the Avengers and an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., he has a strong reputation in the source material as a street-level hero at times, with adventures that have made for some of Marvel's more personal stories, especially with writers like Matt Fraction, who made the character's probably greatest run. It tells an intimate story of how Clint Barton lives his life when he isn't really in the glamour of Avengers-level status. He's a guy with a bow and arrow. An extremely dangerous guy, but you put him next to an Asgardian god or a Hulk, and yeah, he doesn't look that impressive. There's a reason he is on the Avengers, and it's because Clint Barton is extremely capable. Watch him take out a room of guys by himself, and you'll see what I mean. Dick Grayson was not only the very first member of the Bat family, but for a lot of people, including me, he is the favorite. Born to a family of acrobats, orphaned, and then taken in by Bruce Wayne, Dick became the very first Robin, appearing in Detective Comics number 38 in 1940. He was the leader of the Teen Titans, and when his Robin career came to an end, he became Nightwing. He has gone on to take the Batman mantle a bunch of times, but honestly, it was in 1995 and 1996 when he received his own stories that he really became his own. He was given his own city, the decaying harbor town known as Bloodhaven, which was just north of, and honestly a bit more ruthless than, Gotham itself. It allowed him to be close enough to Gotham to stay part of the Bat family, as well as have his own city and series of adventures that, alongside his time on and leading various different teams, shows just how capable this former Robin really is. But speaking of former Robins, Dick Grayson's replacement as Robin was one Jason Todd. But while Nightwing became a pillar of the superhero community, Jason's journey was much darker. After his infamous passing at the hands of the Joker, Jason Todd was taken by Talia al Ghul to the Lazarus Pits, where he was not only resurrected, but also gained magical enhancements like the ability to summon the All Blades. Jason would then have his training from Batman built upon by being trained by the All-Cast and the League of Assassins, before eventually leaving that group and returning to Gotham as the vigilante Red Hood. As Red Hood, he was incredibly complex and incredibly capable. He would fight Batman many times, having an on-again, off-again friendship with his former mentor, but also leading the Outlaws for a long time, and even leading the League of Assassins for a little while. He's considered one of the greatest Bat family members and one of the greatest hand-to-hand fighters out there. Even Damian Wayne, who doesn't even like Jason that much, admitted that he was one of the greatest fighters to have ever lived. After the passing of her mother, a warrior named Azumi Ozawa, Marvel's Colleen Wing moved moved to Japan and was trained as a samurai by her grandfather, Kenji Ozawa. Colleen took quickly to her samurai training, which eventually elevated her to become a world-class fighter, being incredibly efficient with her swords, but also in time as a master detective. After she had completed her training, Colleen moved back to New York City, where she used her abilities to work with her father, Professor Lee Wing, and as a private investigator, which led her to working with other local street-level heroes and even teams like the X-Men and the Defenders. Over the years, she has co-owned Nightwing Restorations and Daughters of the Dragon with Misty Knight, and plays important roles with all different versions of Heroes for Hire as one of the most dangerous people on the planet in Marvel Comics. With the resources of a Tony Stark playboy, access to the mystical realms, and knowledge on the same class as Doctor Strange, Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, is a character that doesn't always seem like he would be duking it out with gangsters and street thugs. Iron Fist doesn't let his privileges and absolutely massive skill set stop him from getting involved in the local communities that he cares deeply for. He's done a lot of good work for the streets of New York City alongside his best friend Luke Cage. Those who earn the Iron Fist title by defeating the ancient dragon Shao Lao the Undying are trained to be living weapons, and for Danny, he recently gained access to the knowledge, experience, and skills of all the Iron Fists before him, so imagine how powerful he is now. And that's before even talking about his chi augmentation and the things he can do with his chi power, making him a force that very few can stand against. John Paul Valley was an agent of the Sacred Order of Saint Dumas. This secret and sacred order created a hero and protector of their secrets known as Azrael. This hero was actually a legacy title, with generation after generation being brainwashed and pretty much manipulated from before birth to believe that they were the Angel of Death. John Paul broke this conditioning when he decided to ally himself with Batman after Bruce Wayne had taught him the error of his ways. John Paul has gone on to be Batman for an infamous period of time, and he remained a vigilante for the most part afterwards. His skills were honed by training with Bruce Wayne, obviously, and he is thus possibly just as skilled as Batman, although his lack of experience and finesse make him the weaker of the two. But due to his extreme physical capabilities as a result of genetic engineering, he has greater strength, reflexes, and speed than a normal peak-level human being, which, in junction with his trained skills, has allowed him to defeat the likes of Batman, Bane, Nightwing, and even be offered leadership in the League of Assassins by Ra's al Ghul. Second to last today, the original hero known as Thunderstrike was a guy named Eric Masterson. He eventually merged with Thor in the late 80s before fully taking up the mantle of Thor in the early 90s, and then eventually getting his own hammer and becoming Thunderstrike. Eric had a son, Kevin Masterson, but unfortunately, due to his dad being increasingly involved with Thor, Eric began to lack in the father department, and so Kevin went to live with his mom and stepdad. Now eventually, Eric passed away after being possessed by the Blood Axe. His Thunderstrike mace was then taken by the Avengers and eventually given to Eric by Captain America himself. Given the Asgardian nature of his superhero origins, Thunderstrike isn't strictly a street-level hero, but he feels very street-level and is often listed as a street-level hero. But Kevin has also been part of the Asgardians of the Galaxy and teamed up with the mighty Avengers. But last up today, Shang-Chi is one of, if not the greatest martial artists on Earth. He can take on multiple opponents at once and can even defeat people much more superhumanly powerful than him while he's just a regular dude. In fact, in the White Hot Room, when the Phoenix organized a tournament to pick who would be the new Phoenix host, the only reason that Shang-Chi lost was because he refused to take a life. He's particularly skilled in Chinese martial arts, but his skill branches out to many more. Shang-Chi, like Iron Fist, is also able to manipulate chi energy, which he can use to enhance his strength and durability, and can even detect others based on their energy. But Shang-Chi gets a much more significant boost to power when he is using the 10 rings. He can use the rings as projectiles, manipulate their size, and use them to levitate and even fly. And he can even manipulate the energies from the rings to do many more things, including projecting said energy and creating an energy-based blast. Thanks to either side of his parentage, Shang-Chi inherited his mother's psionic abilities to communicate with his blood relatives, even the deceased ones. It's easy to assume that street-level characters are just not that powerful, but that would be a mistake, and it's an even bigger mistake when dealing with street-level villains. The story of Martin Lee, Mr. Negative, is actually quite interesting. The man who would become Mr. Negative was a member of the Snakeheads in China. He smuggled immigrants into the United States as as a crew member of the Golden Mountain ship, but when the ship crashed onto the New York City shores, he stole the identity of one of the deceased immigrants named Martin Lee, but was unfortunately captured by the Maggia crime family and delivered to the chemist Simon Marshall, who was developing a new synthetic substance called D-Light, and was testing it on runaway teens and illegal immigrants. Thanks to D-Light and his unique biology, Martin Lee survived and developed superpowers related to the Dark Force and the Light Force, and he became Mr. Negative, dedicating himself to becoming Chinatown's kingpin of crime. He can take control of other minds and empower others and objects with Dark Force energy. He has the strength to send Spider-Man flying through 2 whole buildings. He can tank blows from Spider-Man and Anti-Venom, and is fast enough to dodge bullets. Whisper Adair is a villain that I actually had never heard of before. She's been around since 2000, and as a street-level villain, mainly to Batman, but to other heroes as well from time to time, she's actually quite unique. Originally having ties to the League of Shadows, Whisper was given a serum by Ra's al Ghul that not only made her immortal, but gave her the terrifying ability to turn into a literal snake lady that can spit acid. If that weren't enough though, she even gained minor mind control abilities, and the serum even gave her the power to create a small group of men who also have the ability to shapeshift into different animals. While she is tied to both the League of Shadows and Intergang, her loyalty is mainly to herself, and she has become infamous in the Gotham underworld. Steel Serpent is basically the nemesis of Iron Fist, and he is quite the capable chappie. Davos is the son of the Thunderer, aka Lai Kung, and growing up, there was a lot of pressure on him to become the next Iron Fist. Davos took his shot at trying to defeat the dragon Shao Lao in order to gain the power of the Iron Fist, but he ultimately lost and was defeated. The fight itself was not sanctioned, and for that, he was banished from Kunlun and swore to wrest the power of the Iron Fist from whoever would succeed in the task. That was Danny Rand. As the Steel Serpent, he actually managed to fulfill that goal when he beat Danny in combat and took the power of the Iron Fist for himself, that is, until his own defeat. Davos's powers were then restored by the Crane Mother in exchange for becoming the champion of the mystical land of Kun-Zi. Every time I have to talk about the Batman villain known as Cornelius Stirk, I get a whole lot of heebie-jeebies. Stirk suffers from delusions which make him believe that he requires the nutrients of a human heart in order to stay alive. But not just any heart. Specifically, Cornelius believes that the heart is the most nutritious when it is full of norepinephrine, a natural hormone that secretes when a person is terrified, as well as adrenaline. So he uses his unexplained psionic abilities to mentally make people perceive him as someone else, which, other than allowing him to break out of Arkham Asylum the first time, also allows him to get close to his victims and then completely terrify them in the most insane ways possible before he quickly ends their lives and partakes in a nice old hearty meal. Cornelius is incredibly effective, and he's been able to both evade Batman and even make the Dark Knight go unconscious. Carlos Lemuerto, a crime lord in South America and parts of Europe, first ever appeared as the villain Black Tarantula in Amazing Spider-Man number 419, and not too long after that, he gave Spider-Man one of the most absolutely brutal beatdowns I have ever seen the wall crawler suffer. The title of Black Tarantula is a legacy title that is handed down generation to generation, with the heir to the title being taken from an early age to begin a life of intense training. Now, I personally couldn't find how Carlos gained superhuman abilities, but he certainly has them, and used them when he beat up Spider-Man. The Black Tarantula has superhuman agility and strength, able to optimally press over 30 tons. He can exert himself at peak for 24 hours, he's nearly bulletproof, his speed is faster than Spider-Man's, he has absurdly powerful eyesight, he has the ability to heal both himself and others from near fatal injuries, and if that all weren't enough, he even has optic blasts. He has acted in some heroic capacities from time to time, which the heroes need to thank their lucky stars for, because he can steamroll a heck of a lot of people. DC's Deathstroke is one of a few villains on this list that really toes the line of being a mere street level villain. With physical abilities 10 times that of a normal human being, and the ability to use 90% of his brain, Deathstroke is a guy that has proven himself more than enough times. He has fought multiple multiple different members of the Justice League, and even when his natural abilities have not been enough, he has found numerous ways to power himself up enough to get the job done, even being able to fight on par with Superman. He has taken down the Atom, Impulse, Batman, Kid Flash, the Phantom Lady, Uncle Sam, and obviously the Teen Titans. During Identity Crisis, he nearly took down the entire Justice League, taking down each member with methods tailored to each of their strengths and weaknesses before they rallied. But even with all of that, being a mercenary first and foremost, Deathstroke started as and often finds himself working on a street level capacity more often than anything else. Okay, so if you know who the mutant known as Legion is, the one who has hundreds of different alternate personalities that all have different mutant powers, well, Mary Walker is sort of like that. Only for Mary, she has only a handful of alternate personalities, and they just allow her to access the powers that as just Mary, she can't access. Those powers include limited amounts of pyrokinesis, telekinesis to move small objects, grabbing her dropped weapons, or even turning objects into armor, and telepathy, usually used to manipulate others, cause distractions, or influence people to do things without thinking, like grabbing their weapons. Her Mary persona is actually a pretty timid and quiet person, but her other main persona is Typhoid, who is more adventurous, lustful, and violent. She later adopted a few other personas like Bloody Mary, who was sadistic and brutal, and pretty much hated all men, and Zero, who was a cold, calculated, and militaristic person. Of all the characters on this list, I think Poison Ivy is by far not only the most powerful, but also the one who has the least amount of business being just a street level villain. Dr. Pamela Isley was a brilliant botanist who knew everything there is to know about plant life. She managed to work her way up to a position researching plants at Wayne Enterprises, but was fired after suggesting using plant-based chemicals to develop brainwashing substances. As she was being escorted out by security, she spilled chemicals all over herself from her newest assignment and gained a connection to the Green, an elemental force that connects all plant life. As a Batman villain, Ivy's goals aren't as simple as robbing banks and running gangs. She fights for the environment, using her connection over all plant life to really cause big problems, as her control over plant life can reach a global scale, and she's even put the Man of Steel under her control using her powerful toxins. Poison Ivy is basically a god in Batman street level villain clothing. Brock Rumlow was a gang member and criminal in New York City from a young age. As an adult, he honed his criminal talents under the tutelage of Taskmaster and became a mercenary and assassin, eventually gaining the attention and approval of the Red Skull. Rumlow's physical abilities have been enhanced to the peak of human ability, rivaling Captain America himself. He is highly skilled in combat, and he at one point also gained the ability to fire energy blasts capable of vaporizing multiple dudes from his head thanks to the Terrigen Mists, but this was only temporary. A lot of his feats have been against Captain America, who he physically matches, but he has physically manhandled quite a lot of people and has taken the lives of many others with his bare hands. He has tanked some incredibly heavy hits and is often underappreciated for just how much damage he can both take out and dish out. Basically, if Captain America can do it, there's a good chance that Crossbones can do it too, which makes him pretty darn capable. And lastly, maybe more powerful than you think is a bit of a lie for this point, because when it comes to the Batman villain Bane, he is widely known to be wildly powerful, especially as he is the one infamous for breaking the bat. Other than breaking the bat, Bane is largely known for his incredible levels of strength, which is even impressive before he uses his venom, being much stronger than Batman himself. After being pumped full of venom though, he gains a low superhuman level of strength, becoming capable of lifting up to 3 tons, as well as becoming superhumanly durable, fast, and even gaining a level of superhuman healing. But his strength is only one half of the equation, because what some people forget is that Bane also has a genius level intellect without ever actually going to school. He is a polymath, expert tactician, escapologist, multilingual, and even has a photographic memory. You couple all of that with his martial skill, and it's easy to see why Bane has become one of the Dark Knight's most feared adversaries.
Number 10, Mad Hatter. Surprisingly, one of the most common of those on our list, despite being a super weird villain. This fact even just surprised me. Technically, any of Batman's villains could be considered street-level villains because of their association with both Batman and to Gotham. Mad Hatter Jervis Tetch is no exception to this rule. When it comes to the current Primer's continuity, he made his first appearance in 2011's Batman The Dark Knight issue number 5. Although the character has been around since the 1940s in terms of his historical first appearance outside of the current continuity. continuity. Like many Batman villains, the Mad Hatter doesn't have powers, but instead relies on his intellect and his scientific knowledge to go toe-to-toe with the Dark Knight. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not consider hitting that subscribe button? It really helps us out here at the channel, and that way you don't miss out on any good old nerdy content. Boom. Number 9. Owl. The Owl is a very interesting and strange villain, an enemy of Daredevil Leland Owlsley. His first appearance in Daredevil issue number 3, being one of Daredevil's actually original foes. While perhaps lesser known today, at least in my case, he has actually appeared more than some obscure street level villains that are on this list. Owl's main power is flight, which obviously doesn't sound too wild, especially when you consider some of the restrictions required for him to fly. He actually needs to leap from a certain height to stay in the air and can only fly a rather low height of up to 15 feet in the air, which really not that high. Leland, though, also possesses more impressive powers in addition to his flight, thank goodness. He possesses the powers of superhuman speed, agility, endurance, durability, and strength, a healing factor, razor-sharp claws, enhanced senses, and later also gains photokinetic data powers which allow him to become omniscient. Number 8. Stiltman. Stiltman might be thought of as more of a joke villain today, but initially he was very much serious and actually operated as a street-level villain opposite the street-level hero, Daredevil. Wilbur Day as Stiltman made his first appearance in Daredevil issue number 8. As Wilbur, he was also tied to a legal case that Matt had undertaken where Wilbur, who was Stiltman, had stolen his boss's technical designs, claiming them for his own, and attempted to sue him for ownership. Yeah, I don't know how he thought that was gonna fly, but it didn't work out very well for him. These designs were of course used to build his stilt. Stiltman has no powers, but instead possesses his powerful Stiltman battlesuit, which shields him somewhat from harm and whose telescopic legs can be removed in pieces if parts of them become damaged in battle. Although honestly, I feel like having stilts for legs, it's not a great strategy as a villain, but hey, Stiltman tried to make it work. Number 7, Lady Bullseye. We all know Bullseye, but do you know Lady Bullseye? Lady Bullseye is an assassin who at a young age was actually incidentally, though not necessarily intentionally, saved by the villain Bullseye, and therefore grew up idolizing the killer, wanting to become a killer just like him. Lady Bullseye also has a close attachment to the Hand, having trained with them from a young age, and being told she would actually one day lead the organization herself. Of course, I get a lot of inspiration for street level villains from Daredevil's roster because he has so many that are lesser known, but that honestly are also pretty great, Lady Bullseye being one of those villains. However, she has also tangled with other heroes like Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman in the past. So like some other villains listed here, she isn't mutually exclusive to being a Daredevil street level villain, just to be clear. Neither are many of the people on the list even that are connected to Daredevil. Enter number 6. While Nuke started out as a street level villain, being an adversary of Daredevil, he would go on to become more of an enemy actually of Wolverine, despite him not being mutant based himself. Nuke, however, did make his first appearance in Daredevil issue 232, much later than some of the other DD villains that are mentioned on this list. Nuke initially was a human who was altered with substances and cybernetics. He was taken when he was young by Weapon X, specifically by their recruit Wolverine, and enrolled in Project Homegrown. There he was a subject of the Weapon X program experiments and is believed to be the only subject who has survived this project. I think you can see why he hates Wolverine so much, and that was also really just the beginning of their long and terrifying relationship with one another. Honestly, I kinda understand Nuke's hate of Wolverine, if I'm being real. Number 5, Blockbuster. There have actually been a few folks who have the name Blockbuster in the comics. One being the brother of the Blockbuster that we're focusing on this list, probably the name you first think of when you think of this character. Though honestly, I'd say pretty much all versions of Blockbuster are kinda obscure, to be real with you. Blockbuster isn't a villain that we normally talk about here. Blockbuster initially was Mark Desmond, which is, like I said, the version you might more recognize, but later his brother, Roland, took up the mantle after his brother's death. Unlike Mark, who had a low-level intelligence, Roland possessed super intelligence, a trait he had actually gained through making a deal with Neuron. Blockbuster made his first appearance early on in the current Nightwing run, first appearing in issue number 22, going on to become a villain of Bloodhaven, Nightwing City. He uses the Blockbuster serum to transform into a Hulk-like figure, but unlike his brother, Roland still retains his smarts in the process. Number 4, Firefly. There have been a few people to wear this mantle, but for this list, we're going to focus on the most recent incarnation, Garfield Lynns of the Prime Earth continuity. The most recent and also the oldest, actually. Although Ted Carson is also a prominent Firefly of the Prime Earth continuity in the modern age, but Garfield Lynns was the original Firefly from the New Earth continuity, so I decided to stick with him for this list. But really, you could take it either way. Firefly's pretty obscure all around, I think. Firefly is an arsonist who was a street-level villain in Gotham and an enemy of Batman. In the current continuity, he first appeared in the Nightwing Annual from 2013. He was seemingly killed by Ted Carson, who took over his mantle as Firefly, then later mysteriously reappeared, seemingly resurrected. Firefly doesn't have any powers, he just has tech which allows him to fly, and of course a flamethrower, usually. Were the Batgirl movie to have been released, we may have been more familiar with this character, at least the Ted Carson version of the character, as Brendan Fraser was going to portray him in the now shelved film. Number 3, Mr. Fear. Mr. Fear basically became a villain because he was jealous of Daredevil. This is a real story, guys. He attended the same law school as Matt and was basically jealous of Matt's success and how often he was praised by teachers and students at the school. He was like, Matt, curse you for being so loved. Why am I not loved and praised? Maybe he should just have focused on his work and worked harder. Anyways, well, this is one Mr. Fear. This character is actually not the only one to have used this name. Larry Cranston is the Mr. Fear we're talking about here, who of course got the idea for that name and that villain mantle from the previous Mr. Fear, Zoltan Drago. Number 2, Heartless. Heartless was initially a very mysterious villain who appeared in Nightwing. He made his first appearance in the current run of Nightwing in issue number 78. I gotta be real with you too, he's actually a really scary new villain. While initially mysterious, we've come to learn that Heartless was actually a childhood acquaintance of Nightwing's and was even at the circus the night Dick's parents, the Flying Graysons, perished. He's basically the idea of what Bruce could have become had he been a complete sociopath. Heartless is significantly cybernetically modded, and his body therefore quickly depletes one of his few natural major organs left, his heart. As a result, he is sustained by the hearts of his victims, hence how he got the name Heartless, both for his personality, his need, and of course his MO as a heart thief. Due to his mods, Heartless is also shown to be extremely durable, strong, and fast. He's a pretty formidable foe overall. Number 1, Richard Rowe. Richard Rowe is one of the main villains in the newest Massiveverse series from Image Comics, No One. I honestly love this series, and if you haven't checked it out yet, do yourself a favor, go to your local comic shop, get yourself a copy, check out the podcast, it's amazing. The story has kept me on the edge of my seat since day one. Even though we are given the identity of Richard Rowe, at least that's what seems to be happening, I'm still not sure if anything actually is as it seems in this comic in terms of characters' true identities and motivations myself. Aaron Kern was believed to be Richard Rowe, the one behind the accountability murders in Pittsburgh, and the seeming enemy of the vigilante No One. He got his name as a result of him remaining unnamed for the first few days he was being held, and because when he was initially booked years ago, he was not named, given the place marker pseudonym, which is used by the police, of Richard Rowe. Kind of like John Doe, but kind of for criminals, I believe, instead of victims. That's where Richard Rowe comes in. Aaron Kern initially confessed to being the killer, but later recanted his confession, saying instead that he had actually been coerced. In this way, he was able to basically get out of jail for free, as there was really no real physical evidence to tie him to the case, other than, of course, I guess, his initial confession that was holding him there, but of course, once he was like, that wasn't real, they basically had to let him go. His father, former assistant to the chief of police, Ben Kern, however, is convinced that his son is guilty and worries that now free, Aaron will kill again.
Number 10, Blind Spot. Appearing for the first time in all new, all different Point One, Number 1 from October 2015, Sam Chung was born in rural China, growing up to become an excellent gymnast before his mother eventually illegally brought Sam and herself to the United States. While Sam hadn't really received any formal schooling, he was a genius, and at the age of 12, he had already started putting together blueprints for an invisibility suit. In adulthood, Sam would work as a university janitor, which put him in a perfect place to develop his genius intellect. He would convince professors to let him audit their classes and use their labs in the middle of the night, which is where he finished his invisibility suit. Deciding that his status as an illegal immigrant would harm him if he tried to patent the suit, he decided to instead put it to use as a vigilante, protecting the streets of Chinatown as a hero called Blind Spot. While out on patrol one night, he ran into Daredevil fighting thugs in Hell's Kitchen and decided to seek out Daredevil as his vigilante mentor. Number 9, Cheshire Cat. Leanne Harper is actually the child of another street-level hero, the former sidekick to Green Arrow, Roy Harper, aka Speedy, aka Red Arrow, aka Arsenal, aka the guy who has a lot of names, and a lot of problems. A large part of those problems is that Roy lost Leanne when she was a thinking her to be removed from life at the hands of the villains Prometheus and the Electrocutioner. In reality though, Leon had somehow survived, but was suffering from amnesia. Her earliest ever memory is being rescued from a band of ninjas by the sometimes hero, usually villain known as Cheshire. Now Cheshire then abandoned Leon on the steps of a church, and then years later, having grown a little bit, Leon went by the name Shoes and joined the Alleytown Strays, which is a group of street kids in Gotham's Alleytown area. They survived as thieves living in an old building which had once been the headquarters of Mama Fortuna. Now eventually, Catwoman arrived and announced that she had bought the building and intended to turn the Strays into a gang of thieves under her own leadership. The Strays helped Catwoman to bring down the organized crime groups operating in Alleytown and become the Queen of Alleytown. Now Shoes, or Leon, decided to become an amateur vigilante in Alleytown, taking the name Cheshire Cat and wearing a homemade mask based on Cheshire's own look, with Catwoman taking her on as a protege. Eventually, Leon would reunite with her dad and join the Team Arrow. Number 8. Night Thrasher. Dwayne Taylor grew up believing that his incredibly rich parents were soft-deleted by criminals, and so Dwayne made a vow to make all criminals pay for their crimes. Yes, you probably have heard an origin very similar to that one before. Now Dwayne's guardians, Sergeant Cord and the elderly housekeeper Ty, supported Dwayne in his vow and helped him create the identity of Night Thrasher. After doing some hardcore training, on his first outing, he met two sibling vigilantes named Midnight's Fire and Silhouette, who were taking out criminals by gaining their confidence and then betraying and busting them. After joining the pair one night while Silhouette was infiltrating a criminal operation, the police showed up out of nowhere and it became an extremely tense situation, with Midnight's Fire terrified that the police were going to attack his sister. So he went to attack with a throwing knife instead. That is when Night Thrasher stopped him, leading to a shootout. Now during the altercation, Silhouette was hit and badly injured in the spine, almost taking her life. For this, Midnight's Fire swore to get revenge on Night Thrasher, who had left the group thinking that Silhouette, who he had fallen in love with by the way, had passed away. Now after that, Dwayne trained even harder, and using his parents' resources and foundation, Dwayne, which sounds a lot like Wayne, got access to state-of-the-art headquarters, training facilities, and computer support systems, while also developing specialized armor and weaponry. Recruiting several young heroes, Dwayne eventually formed the New Warriors, and from there, he has only grown. Recently, we learned that Night Thrasher is actually going to be getting his own new solo series, and I will absolutely be reading that. Number 7. Wildcat. First ever appearing in the back pages of the very first issue of Sensation Comics from 1942, which also contained the premiere of Wonder Woman, the original Mr. Terrific, and the Atom, Ted Grant is one of the world's best hand-to-hand fighters, particularly when it comes to boxing, being the one to train several other DC fighters, including Batman himself. Now Ted's dad, Henry Grant, was a good guy, but also a bit of a pushover and a bit of a risk taker. He took it upon himself to make sure that Ted would never be taken advantage of like he was, and so Henry taught Ted how to box. He had taught and trained him so well that Ted became a Wildcat in the ring. Now unfortunately, Henry was pretty broke due to poor life choices, and so he was unable to put Ted through college. Instead, Ted had to take on loading jobs in the East End warehouse district. This is where one of the warehouse unloaders was being ambushed by a couple of thugs, and using his skills with boxing, Ted fights off the thugs, reading each thug's move before they make it. This unloader just happened to be an old boxer, and he brought Ted into the professional boxing world, where he would be framed for taking a life. Ah, scary. He then took on the vigilante name Wildcat in order to clear himself, and eventually joined the Justice Society of America, training heroes, fighting crime, and even eventually gaining 9 lives. I don't know how that happened, but there you go. Number 6. Thunderstrike. Okay, before people get up in arms, I'm going to be talking about specifically the second Thunderstrike here. The original Thunderstrike was a guy named Eric Masterson, and through his time with Thunderstrike, he eventually merged with Thor in the late 80s before fully taking up the Thor mantle in the early 90s, and then eventually getting his own hammer and becoming Thunderstrike. Now Eric had a son, Kevin Masterson, but unfortunately due to Eric being increasingly involved with Thor and gods and supervillains, he began to lack in the father department, and so Kevin went to live with his mom and stepdad. Now eventually Eric passed away after being possessed by the Blood Axe and fighting the Egyptian god and villain known as Seth, and his Thunderstrike mace was then taken by the Avengers, and eventually it was given to Eric by Captain Captain America himself. Now, given the Asgardian nature of his superhero origins, Thunderstrike isn't exactly a street level hero, but this is one of the reasons I love his character. He feels very street level, and I've seen him listed as a street level hero before, but Kevin has also been a part of the Asgardians of the Galaxy, and he teamed up with the Mighty Avengers, but several street level heroes have done the same thing, so I'm curious to know how you guys would classify him. Number 5, the Creeper. Usually when people think of Gotham City heroes, it's immediately Batman and his Bat family, and even though it seems like they are the only ones around here, there are a few other characters. Creeper is one of them. Jack Ryder was an outspoken television reporter for a Gotham City TV station, with the premise of his show being that he deliberately antagonizes his guests in order to raise attention on important topics like stem cell research and medical nanotech. It was when he began research on the revolutionary nanocells therapy of one Dr. Vincent Yates that Ryder discovered an experimental mixture that allowed the body to regenerate from practically any injury of any kind. Ryder was caught by mobsters when he attempted to steal this experimental mixture, and unable to escape, Dr. Yates injected his last sample of these nanocells into Jack Ryder himself as an attempt to keep it safe from the mobsters. Almost immediately afterwards, the mobsters grabbed Ryder and brought him to the pearly gates. However, the regenerative substance of the nanocells kicked in, interacting with his body chemistry and resurrecting him as the Creeper, a beast-like alter ego. He would defeat the villains and go on to team up with Batman and become a Justice League reservist. Number 4, Sleepwalker. Another street level hero whose powers and origins could kind of raise him out of that classification if you want to be a stickler about it. Sleeper is part of a group called the Sleepwalkers, who are basically dream police. These entities would go around apprehending any beings that decided to invade the sleeping minds of humans. The one who would become Sleepwalker was tricked by his longtime foe, known as Cobweb, into entering the mind of a New York college student named Rick Sheridan, where Sleepwalker then became trapped. After Rick and Sleepwalker confronted each other a few times inside of Rick's own dreams, which I have to imagine is insanely trippy and terrifying, Rick reacted pretty poorly when he tore off Sleepwalker's Imaginator. Now, an Imaginator is basically a badge-like device worn by Sleepwalkers to teleport around their home plane, the Mindscape. This basically tied Rick and Sleepwalker even more together than ever before. Now, whenever Rick slept, Sleepwalker could materialize into reality, or he could stay in Rick's mind and hang out with him. While hanging out in those said dreams, Sleepwalker was able to convince Rick that he was not some kind of evildoer, and they worked out an agreeable terms to cohabitation together, in Rick's own mind. As a weirdly dream-based street-level hero, Sleepwalker had a really unique and rather silly rogues gallery, including 8-Ball, who literally wore a giant 8-ball and used billiards-based equipment, which is hilarious. There was also the ultra-nerdy Bookworm, who was able to manifest physical representations of any written material, which is so cool. And then there was also Lullaby, who could put people to sleep and control them by singing. Number 3, Jack in the Box. The Astro City comic is one I know I never really talk about, but it boasts a roster of beloved superheroes, with one of the most intriguing being the clown-based hero Jack in the Box. Now, normally, clowns are playing the role of villains in comics because they're terrifying. Thanks mainly to the Joker, though, I would say. In that regard, Jack in the Box is a bit of a breath of fresh air. Inspired by other acrobatic street-level heroes, Jack in the Box is actually the alter ego of Jack Johnson, an African-American toy designer for Whamco Toys. Now, Jack had considerable talent, but was only paid half the salary of his less productive white co-workers. His toys were actually so successful that they, for some reason, began to be used by the mob to attack people. Now, this got Jack fired and even led to his father being kidnapped, which is when Jack created his Jack in the Box persona to fight back. Using almost cartoony gadgets like spring-loaded catapults built into his gloves and boots to help him get around and fight using agility, confetti streamers that tangle up and or capture bad guys, and electric clown noses, Jack took on both the mob and his own corrupt ex-employers until he tragically passed away, leaving his son Zachary to fill in the role until he hung up his superhero clown shoes, passing the mantle to his protege, Roscoe James. Number 2, Shroud. Similar to Night Thrasher from earlier on this list, and several other heroes who have a thing for beating up criminals in the night, Max Coleridge lost both of his parents right in front of him at the age of 10, leading him to dedicate his life to combating crime. But instead of using insane amounts of wealth to dress up in armor and pointy ears, Max went to law school, trained as an Olympic-level athlete, and studied studied science. It was after graduating that he got really weird. Max joined the mysterious temple called the Cult of Kali, or Kali, where he became a master in a whole bunch of Asian martial arts and in infiltration, but also worshipped their dark goddess. When he had completed his training, Max was surprisingly branded with the Kiss of Kali, with the cult using a red-hot iron in the shape of their symbol on Max's eyes, completely blinding him. But after the pain subsided, Max found that he had been granted a psychic perception that allowed him to see impressions of his environment within a radius of about 100 feet of himself, even through solid walls. And for his very first go at things, he decided to follow the Fantastic Four to Latveria and try to take the life of Dr. Doom, which he actually did fairly well at. But unfortunately, it's Dr. Doom, and Shroud's defeat came pretty soon afterwards and actually drove Shroud insane. After recovering, he went on as a vigilante, fighting alongside other heroes and gaining Dark Force dimension powers and occasionally struggling with his sanity again. Number 1. Colleen Wing. After the death of her mentor, a warrior named Azumi Azawa, Colleen Wing moved to Japan and was trained as a samurai by her grandfather Kenji Ozawa. Now, thanks to a mix of her grandfather's training and her blood flowing through her, Colleen took quickly to her samurai training, which eventually elevated her to become a world-class fighter, performing at the very peak of physical level. After she had completed her training, Colleen moved back to New York City, where she used her abilities to work with her father and as a private investigator, which led her to working with other local street-level heroes, most notably Misty Knight. Over the years, she has co-owned Nightwing Restorations and Daughters of the Dragon with Misty Knight and plays important roles with all the different versions of Heroes for Hire as one of the most dangerous people on the planet.
Number 10. Red Canary. On his part 1, AJ talked about Black Canary, who I personally really wanted to also discuss on this list. So because of that, I decided I'd tell you about another Canary adjacent character. This one is an up-and-comer who might not be super powerful yet, but who you might want to watch out for when it comes to her potential as a hero. Red Canary was inspired by the hero Black Canary to become herself a hero in the same bird style and title. As far as we know right now, her name is simply Sienna. She took up the mantle after the death of the Justice League, believing them to actually have died, and thinking the world needed new heroes to replace the League. However, of course, Black Canary and the other heroes would return, they weren't really dead, but Red Canary has chosen to stay on and fight as a hero still. When it comes to her skills and powers currently, she's an experienced martial artist, which honestly is super street level just in and of itself. Red Canary also fights with the Screama sticks like Nightwing, but her sticks were stolen from a villain and as such are also kinda high tech. Number 9. Jonah Hex. Jonah Hex initially started out as a hero from the Wild West. He made his first appearance in the 1972 comic All-Star Western issue number 10. He was introduced as a famed bounty hunter who gained prominence at first during the frontier days in the 19th century. Jonah is not your typical hero, but is instead an anti-hero who is killed many times over, but attempts to stick to his own personal moral code, fighting back against his own violent instincts to keep himself in check when need be. He also wears a Confederacy uniform because he actually did fight in the American Civil War, but he actually wears it to like atone for his past sins because he sees that as like a bad thing. So in case you were wondering why he's wearing that, that's why he's wearing that. It's a statement. It's not him actually believing in what the Confederates were fighting for during the Civil War. Number 8. Black Lightning. Black Lightning is a hero that we truly do not talk about enough. Initially, Jefferson Pierce appeared in the 1977 Black Lightning comic in issue number 1. He was a vigilante who typically could be found fighting crime in the inner city. Pierce himself by day is a school teacher and principal, but at night, he becomes the vigilante Black Lightning. Jefferson can create raw electricity and use it to fight crime by emitting blasts, creating shields which boost his strength, and using it to teleport even. He also has a healing factor. Not only is Jefferson powerful when it comes to his superpowers, but he's also studied with Batman in hand-to-hand combat and is considered himself an accomplished athlete. He also brings his own everyday skills of teaching to the table, which makes him a pretty decent leader, I would say, when he needs to be, and also means he is quite educated and smart when it comes to his knowledge base. Number 7. Detective Chimp. While Detective Chimp has dabbled in the realm of the spiritual and mystical, he is also ultimately a private detective, which puts him pretty much at street level by default. However, as is clearly evident when it comes to this list, this does not mean the Bobo T chimpanzee should be underestimated. He may be a chimp, but he also possesses one of the most gifted minds on all all of planet Earth. Bobo is immortal, granted this power by the magical fountain of youth that he once drank from. It also gave him supreme intelligence, allowing him to communicate with and understand humans as well. When it comes to his detective skills, he is on par with heroes like Batman, making him basically one of the best detectives in the entire world. He also has some skills when it comes to combat, even if it isn't his forte per se, and like I said, he has some knowledge of the occult and magic as well. Over his life, he has possessed the Sword of Night and the Helmet of Fate. Number 6. Static. Static is based in Dakota City, and this is often where we see him operate when it comes to him fighting crime. Initially, Static was a part of Milestone Comics, but this comic line ended up getting bought by DC, and recently even saw its line of comics within DC relaunched. Yay! Static himself has been a part of the DC universe since before that relaunch though, although with it, Static himself, along with the other heroes from Milestone, also saw a revamp somewhat of their origin stories and their looks. Instead of it being a gang war that Virgil was caught up in when his powers activated, he was instead attending a Black Lives Matter protest with his friends. When experimental tear gas was deployed in an attempt to stifle the protest, the substance, which, like I said, was experimental, resulted in him and others attending getting superpowers. This event, like in the original comic series, would become known as the Big Bang, with Static being referred to as a bang baby because this is where he gets his electromagnetic and electrokinetic powers from. Number 5. Blue Beetle. While everything may feel like it's coming up hamey with the release of DC and Warner Brothers' Blue Beetle film rapidly approaching us, Ted Kord was Blue Beetle prior to Hamey's appearance, and even now, he still is Blue Beetle. Hamey is also awesome, but I thought I would inform those who may not know about this about the Blue Beetles who have actually come before. Ted Kord did die in the New Earth continuity, but I believe he is still alive and well in the Prime Earth continuity, which is the current main continuity when it comes to DC Comics. Ted Kord as Blue Beetle is a genius who is even on a similar level to Batman when it comes to his own ingenuity and inventing skills. Not only that, but he is also a skilled computer hacker, an acrobat, a martial artist, and he has experience piloting. And that's on top of all of the stuff his suit can just do by itself, so yeah. Pretty impressive. Number 4. Nightwing. One of my all-time favorite heroes, especially lately with Bruno Redondo and Tom Taylor working on the amazing Nightwing book. Goodness, what an amazing time to be alive and be a Nightwing fan right now. When it comes to Nightwing, you can typically find him swinging above the streets of Bloodhaven, which tends to be where he is based ever since he decided to move out from Batman's shadow and become his own hero, with Dick Grayson moving from Robin to Nightwing. As Nightwing, Grayson is basically like a more optimistic version of Batman, except that instead of being a millionaire, at least not normally he's a millionaire, he tends to be more a person of the people. In fact, he even struggles sometimes to pay rent like most people do. And even recently, when he did inherit a massive sum of funds following Alfred's death, he decided to use this newfound fortune to actually fix up the city of Bloodhaven, promising to give pretty much all of it away through investing in various sites and programs that can better help Bloodhaven fight against the crime and corruption it faces and its residents face daily. I just love that. I love how Dick is like, I just got a bunch of money, I'm not even gonna keep it, I'm just gonna pretty much give it all away. I'm still gonna stay a man of the people. Number 3. Hellblazer. Also known as John Constantine, the original Hellblazer from Vertigo was very much a street level hero. And yeah, back in the day, this was one of the names that he went by, Hellblazer. Well, he was more of an anti-hero, I guess I should say, but I doubt we'll ever do a top 10 most powerful street level anti-heroes in DC Comics because that would be a pretty niche list, even for us. So I figured if I wanted to talk about John on a list like this, now was basically my chance, so I'm taking it. Constantine initially started out as basically an occult-based detective. He answered calls for help around London and did his best to sort out supernatural matters that were often extremely dark and challenging problems to solve. Seriously, go back and read the original Hellblazer series, it is an experience. While there are likely smarter detectives out there when it comes to their brain power, John is probably the most ruthless detective we have over at DC Comics. He's very wily. He's willing to do all sorts of questionable things in order to fix a problem, and even will put his and others' souls on the line when he feels it's necessary. Underline others, because I feel like John also really loves to barter with other people's souls and lives. Number 2. Batman. Batman is my favorite hero out there, so of course I have to include him on this list. He is after all the ultimate street level hero, which might feel weird to say considering how big of a hero he has become when it comes to his fame. But at the same time, Batman started out just patrolling the streets of Gotham, and Gotham has always been his city. Sure, he's gone international, he even started his own international network of Bat-themed or affiliated heroes with Batman Inc., and Batman has even gone to space and traveled through time. But at the end of the day, Gotham is his home, and it's the place he always returns to. When it comes to some of his most iconic stories, this is where they take place, and the city is what Batman is often fighting to protect against all odds. Number 1. Danny the Street. Danny the Street has to be the ultimate street level hero, because, well, he's literally a street. Danny the Street made his first appearance in Doom Patrol in the 90s in issue number 35 of the second volume. Danny himself is a sentient street that can teleport anywhere around the world. He controls what appears on the street and who he decides to house there, with of course the street literally being him, often providing a safe haven for the outcasts of society, especially those who are outcast because of their sexual orientation or their gender identity. But not always. He takes all kinds of outcasts, I would say.
At number 10 is Red Hood, by far one of the most captivating and tragic heroes of all time. Initially known as Jason Todd, his journey began as a street punk until Batman took him under his wing, acting as a father figure to the second Robin. Tragedy struck when the Joker mercilessly bashed him one too many times with a crowbar, leaving Batman devastated. But that's not where Jason's story ends. Thanks to either Superboy Prime's reality-altering antics or a little help from the Lazarus Pits, depending on which continuity we're talking about, he was resurrected, bursting out of his own coffin with a deep resentment towards Batman for failing to avenge him. Becoming the infamous anti-hero Red Hood, he adopted the name to taunt Batman, reminding him of his two greatest failures: when Batman knocked the original Red Hood into the vat of chemicals and inadvertently creating the Joker, and failing to save Jason Todd. By taking the name Red Hood, Jason is taunting Batman with the fact that his two greatest failures are coming back to taunt him. Believing Batman's approach to crime was flawed, Red Hood took matters into his own hands. Working undercover in the criminal underworld, he sought to control crime rather than destroy it. He justified claiming lives when dealing with those who've claimed lives themselves, enacting his own version of justice. The emotional core of Red Hood's character lies in his quest for answers and revenge. He confronted Batman, wanting to know why he spared the Joker after the torment he inflicted on him. In Jason's mind, he found his answer when Batman chose to save the Joker's life. At number 9 is Wildcat. Wildcat is one of DC's most powerful street-level heroes despite having no superpowers. The legacy of feline-themed vigilantes began with Ted Grant, a world-class champion boxer who fights crime using his incredible hand-to-hand combat abilities. Ted's journey as a fighter started early in life when he faced a tough opponent named Billy, who knocked him and his front teeth out after having been distracted by daydreams of his school crush cheering him on. This experience taught Ted the importance of focus in a fight and made him see love itself as nothing more than a distraction. As he grew older, he became a heavyweight boxer, dominating the competition during the day while secretly fighting crime in his off time as the hero known as Wildcat. While his signature fighting style is boxing, Ted is a master martial artist, having trained other iconic heroes like Batman, Black Canary, Green Arrow, and Jay Garrick. Despite his age, Wildcat's stamina and muscle physique remain unmatched. Punches are even capable of ripping shadow demons in two. Furthermore, some comics suggest that he possesses a unique ability to revive himself if he ever passes away, albeit this power is limited to 9 resurrections. Well, 6. Apparently he already lost the first 3. At number 8 is Tim Drake. As the third ever Robin, he assumed the mantle after the tragic demise of Jason Todd. What sets Drake apart from all Robins, however, is his unparalleled detective skills, arguably making him one of the most exceptional sleuths among all who've embraced the Robin role. But Tim's journey didn't end with being Batman's sidekick. He became his own hero, adopting the prefix Red and becoming the Red Robin, continuing his street-level heroics, never losing touch with his roots. Not only did Tim prove his worth as a solo crime fighter, but he also became an invaluable member of renowned teams like the Titans and the Young Justice, solidifying his status not only as one of the greatest street-level heroes, but beyond that, his legacy as one of the best Robins remains intact. At number 7 is The Question. Originally portrayed by Vic Sage, a skilled investigative journalist, The Question is the epitome of a street-level hero. Donning the mask to protect his identity, Sage embarked on a relentless quest to unravel mysteries and expose conspiracies. What's fascinating is that many of his theories, initially considered mere speculation, turned out to be startlingly true. In the captivating storyline 52, Vic Sage sadly met his demise, leading to a crucial passing of the torch. Enter Renee Montagna, a familiar face in Batman comics, who took on the mantle, the question. Having left Gotham PD, Montana embraced her new identity, continuing her valiant crusade to safeguard the crime-ridden streets she held dear. But what makes the Question one of the most powerful street-level heroes? It's not about superhuman abilities or flashy powers. Rather, it's the unwavering determination, unyielding intellect, and dogged pursuit of truth that define this character. With both Sage and Montana bringing their unique skills to the table, the Question navigates the complex web of crime and corruption, making each of them a formidable force in the gritty streets of DC Comics. At number 6 is the Vigilante. Starting off as a lawyer and eventually becoming a judge, Adrian Chase's transformation into a deadly anti-hero was catalyzed by a harrowing tragedy, the loss of his wife and children to mafia violence. Having lost faith in a judicial system that had failed to bring his family's executioners to justice, he metamorphosized into the Vigilante, doling out his unique brand of ruthless justice to the underworld. Chase's relentless pursuit of mob boss Anthony Scarpelli took him deeper into the darkness of vigilantism, culminating in his tragic end when, after several failed attempts to quit vigilantism, he took his own life, inspiring a lineage of relentless executioners to take up his mantle. Throughout history, he's showcased a remarkable tenacity and resourcefulness, exemplifying the true essence of a powerful street-level hero. As a former member of Checkmate and an associate of the Teen Titans, his influence echoes throughout the annals of DC Comics. At number 5 is Damian Wayne. If there's one thing that Bruce gets right, it's raising children to become legitimate, competent, and independent street heroes. And the most recent Robin is closer in skill to Batman than any other, his son, Damian Wayne. Damian's journey to heroism was no walk in the park. With a grandfather as notorious as the assassin Ra's al Ghul, he faced an uphill battle to resist the allure of a darker path. Yet Damian made the conscious choice to align himself with his father Batman, rejecting his darker heritage. Trained by the best, Damian honed his combat skills and tactical genius to perfection, making him an exceptional partner to Batman. His unique bond with the Caped Crusader has instilled in him a sense of discipline and determination, setting him apart from other Robins. In addition to his lineage and training, Damian possesses unique traits. Enhanced by the Al Ghul bloodline, he exhibits superior physical prowess, agility, and resilience. Furthermore, his cunning intellect and fierce determination to protect Gotham City further elevate his status as a truly remarkable street-level hero. With a complex backstory and relentless commitment to justice, Damian Wayne, the fourth boy wonder, undoubtedly earns his place among the most powerful street-level heroes in the captivating world of DC Comics. At number 4 is Rorschach. Walter Kovacs, famously known as Rorschach, is often considered the main protagonist among the ensemble cast of The Watchmen, as it's he who drives most of the plot forward and serves as the series' only narrator. Despite lacking superhuman abilities, Rorschach's unwavering determination and unorthodox methods set him apart. His unhinged demeanor and recklessly audacious approach to combat make him an unpredictable force to reckon with. With his tragically dark past and disillusionment with the flawed justice system, Rorschach becomes a man of fierce conviction, almost bordering on obsession. His relentless pursuit of justice against crime is fueled by a belief that evil is a deeply ingrained sickness that demands eradication. And how does he accomplish this? Through a torrent of punches, demonstrating nearly unparalleled fighting skills. And although he's not physically the toughest Watchman, Rorschach's mental fortitude and audacious tactics make him a formidable and feared figure on the streets, even among superpowered adversaries. His unique blend of madness, conviction, and combat prowess solidifies Rorschach's status as one of DC Comics' most powerful street-level heroes. At number 3 is Nightwing. Starting off as the very first Robin to ever hold the title, Dick Grayson grew to become an adored figure in DC Comics. After his partnership with Batman, he became the iconic Nightwing, carving his path into the superhero landscape. While Batman protected Gotham City, Nightwing found his calling in the neighboring town of Bloodhaven. However, Dick's dynamic skills were not limited to being a vigilante. He also worked as a police officer, adding a unique layer to his work as a crime fighter. This background endowed him with invaluable street-level experience, finally honing his abilities to tackle crime head-on while being closely connected with the communities he served. What's more is that Grayson's Teen Titans tenure further shaped his remarkable capabilities, expanding his heroic toolkit and establishing him as a symbol of hope and inspiration for fellow heroes and citizens alike. With deep-rooted connections, vast experience, and a relentless commitment to justice, Nightwing thrives as a street-level hero on par with his mentor Batman. At number 2 is Green Arrow. Green Arrow, the affluent archer of DC Comics, transcends his privileged upbringing to become one of the most powerful street-level heroes in the DC universe. His unwavering dedication to helping his city sets him apart from many other heroes. Green Arrow's compassionate, bleeding heart heroism drives him to utilize his considerable resources to aid the less fortunate, battling the crime that plagues their neighborhoods. While renowned for his unparalleled archery skills, Green Arrow's hand-to-hand combat combat abilities are equally exceptional. He's proven his mettle against formidable foes like Deathstroke, showcasing remarkable fighting prowess. Moreover, unlike other heroes, Green Arrow never shies away from acknowledging his mistakes. He confronts his errors head on, diligently working to rectify them and taking responsibility for his actions. In addition to his unmatched marksmanship, Green Arrow's extensive arsenal of trick arrows grant him a versatile edge in any situation. From explosive to boomerang arrows, his ingenuity knows no bounds. Despite facing various challenges, Green Arrow maintains a balanced life as both a hero and Oliver Queen, retaining his sense of humor and humanity. Comparatively, Batman's life is almost entirely consumed by his crime-fighting mission in Gotham City. While Batman possesses an unparalleled skill set and an impressive bat family, his single-minded dedication leaves little room for personal equilibrium. Conversely, Green Arrow's ability to maintain a balanced life contributes to his resilience as a street-level hero, making him a truly unique and powerful force within the DC Comics universe. And at number 1, it's Batman. If there's one hero in comic books, be it Marvel or DC, that represents the quintessential street-level hero, it's Batman. Since his debut in the 1930s, he's been an emblem of vigilante justice, guarding the alleys of Gotham City from the clutches of the criminal underworld. Batman's rogues gallery consists of adversaries who seek to dominate the streets, from the cunning Penguin and enigmatic Riddler to the two-faced Two-Face and the immortal Ra's al Ghul. However, his most iconic nemesis, the Joker, embodies chaos and anarchy, representing the antithesis of Batman's disciplined approach. But what sets Batman apart is his ability to inspire others to take up the mantle of street vigilantes. As the mentor to numerous heroes like Nightwing, Robin, and Batgirl, he's kicked off an entire lineage of crime-fighting prowess. Batman's legacy endures as the catalyst for a new generation of street-level heroes, making him the undisputed powerhouse of street-level heroes in DC Comics.
In at 10, Catman. I mostly put this on the list because I wanted to joke about Fairly Odd Parents. Thomas Blake, once a wealthy socialite in Gotham City, became a skilled hunter of jungle cats, but squandered his fortune in pursuit of his obsession. Left with nothing, he turned to a life of crime. Considering becoming a vigilante like Batman, he chose a different path later on and became the costumed villain known as Catman. His criminal spree involved stealing cat-themed items and valuables, mirroring his affinity for the creatures he once hunted, and as Catman, he encountered Batman and Robin on multiple occasions, and they eventually figured out his identity, thanks to the intervention of Batwoman. In a desperate attempt to escape capture, Catman deployed a giant cat robot, but the dynamic duo stopped the plans and destroyed the machine. In a final confrontation, Catman was washed away by a river and presumed dead, his criminal career coming to an end. But, I mean, still, Adam West as Catman on Fairly Odd Parents definitely makes him street level. If a kids show can joke about it, then yeah, you're sad. In at 9, Prometheus. Prometheus, born to criminal parents, witnessed their violent demise at the hands of the police, which left them traumatized and turned their hair white from shock. Fueled by a desire for revenge against justice, he took an oath to eradicate all those who stood in his way. Concealing his true name, he became a formidable foe with a plan to wreak havoc on the world. After unleashing devastating devices across numerous cities, causing immense destruction and loss of lives, including Roy Harper's daughter Leanne, Prometheus offered a deal to the Justice League of America. He promised to reveal the device's locations and deactivate them in exchange for his freedom. Reluctantly, the JLA agreed to save innocent lives. However, upon return to his hideout, Prometheus encountered Green Arrow, who sought vengeance for Leanne's death. In a swift confrontation, the Green Arrow shot an arrow through Prometheus' head, putting an end to the man's reign of terror. But hey, then it started the whole Trial of Green Arrow storyline, which a lot of people hate. So yeah, that's why he's up higher on the list, because of him. In at 8, Court of Owls. They're a violent cabal who uses architecture and murder to wield political influence throughout the city. Their legend is only told through whispers and a nursery rhyme that bears their name. To carry out their interests, they employ a breed of highly trained assassins known as Talons, and the leaders of the organization appear to be humans wearing owl masks on their faces, because where else would you wear a mask? The rest of the court, on the other hand, are mutated and appear to be actually like human-owl hybrids. Their owl-like distorted faces, long claws, and their eating style seem to prove this, unless they're just very into roleplay, or maybe they're just owl bears, and D&D has been real in the DC universe for ages. The Court of Owls takes notice when billionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne announces plans to rebuild and reshape Gotham City for the future, but is sentenced to death by the group and their assassin, the Talon. They attempt to kill him during a meeting with politician Lincoln March, but they don't, because, you know, he's Batman. They struggle to the top of Wayne Tower, and the Talon survives a fall from the top of it somehow, but Batman begins to investigate and uncovers their whole society and a secret headquarters and how they were established by the Alan Wayne Trust, and it's a whole thing that is just meant to make Batman connected to the corruption in the city. And at 7, Bronze Tiger. Bronze Tiger, also known as Ben Turner, is a master martial artist renowned worldwide for his combat skills. His journey began with Richard Dragon under the guise of O-Sensei, but he later fell victim to the League of Assassins' brainwashing, transforming him into one of its deadliest killers. Despite their programming, Ben eventually broke free from their control, choosing to embrace heroism instead. His childhood in an upper middle class black neighborhood took a dark turn when at age 10 he killed a burglar that was assaulting his parents. Struggling with anger and homicidal urges as all 10-year-olds do, he turns to martial arts, seeking discipline and control, but again, his anger persisted, leading him to, become a criminal. Recognizing the dangerous path that he was on, Ben embarked on a journey around the world seeking guidance, and he ends up becoming a hero, but he was a villain, and that's why I'm putting him on this list. Plus, Ben Turner in Arrow is pretty freaking dope, so yeah. And at 6, Huntress. Helena Bertinelli, also known as the Huntress, was once a rogue and vengeful vigilante seeking to destroy her father's criminal empire after he had her fiancé, Michael Stanton, killed. Her paths crossed with Oliver Queen, who intervened to save her from her father's deadly scheme, but realizing that Oliver's different approach to justice didn't really work for her, she left Starling. Later on, Helena returned with a vendetta against her father, who sought protection by cooperating with the authorities, but Oliver tried to stop her again, but she escaped. Because he wouldn't kill her, because he had boinked her. This is all from the TV show, by the way. A year later, she resurfaced when Team Arrow confronted her father again, leading to his ultimate demise, but she wasn't the one to do it, so she was upset about that, because if you want your father to die and you aren't the one who does it, apparently that's a bad thing. In the ensuing chaos, she gets arrested and sent to prison, finally. In the comics, she's like a vigilante hero, but in the show, she was definitely a villain, so that's why I'm putting her on the list, alright? That's why it's the Arrow version. Halfway through in at number 5, Condiment King, the best character in all of Batman the Animated Series. The Condiment King, created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini for Batman the Animated Series, is a villain who uses various condiments as his weapons, sometimes capable of causing anaphylactic shock. Yeah, that's right. He's generally used as comic relief within the series. He would make many condiment-based puns. For example, the big bad bat guy, I knew you'd catch up to me sooner or later, how I relished this meeting. You, the dynamic Dark Knight, versus me, the conceptual Condiment King. Come on, Batman, let me see if you can cut the mustard. And we all know that I love bad jokes. The Condiment King is seemingly killed after being betrayed and bludgeoned by the Human Flame with his own ketchup and mustard guns at that in the miniseries finale Crisis Aftermath Run, which already shows how he can actually be deadly. But that's not taking into account any potential allergic reactions that he can trigger, like I said, anaphylactic shock, or blindness, okay? I mean, ketchup and mustard are very acidic and can cause some serious damage if left unchecked. Plus, what would you do if you had fries and he gives you mustard, okay? The only appropriate punishment for that is death. And at 4, Mr. Freeze. I put this on the list because I really wanted to make Freeze jokes, but yeah, it seemed a little cold. Mr. Freeze made his debut as Mr. Zero in Batman number 121 from 1959, and he was a gimmick character, but was later renamed and popularized as Mr. Freeze during the 1960s television series. However, it was Batman the Animated Series that truly revitalized the character and gave him a compelling origin. In the episode Heart of Ice, writer Paul Dini introduced Mr. Freeze's terminally ill wife Nora, cryogenically frozen to preserve her life. The tragic backstory explained his fixation on ice and turned his crime into crime to fund research for her cure. The complex and sympathetic portrayal resonated with fans, becoming the standard for the character in various media, including the comics. The episode's success was groundbreaking for a Saturday morning cartoon, shaping the tone of the entire series. The origin story became canon in the comics and remained the official backstory for Mr. Freeze in most Batman adaptations, and in the 1997 film Batman and Robin, Arnold Schwarzenegger portrayed him, incorporating elements of his origin with Dr. Victor Freeze, a brilliant cryonologist struggling to save his beloved wife. But yeah, we gotta love the puns. What killed the dinosaurs? A meteor! Instead of the Ice Age. If you get it, you get it. No one here's laughing, so I know that was a great joke. And at 3, Batman. While yes, Batman is a hero, and has been a hero in most iterations I should say, there are versions where the Bats is a bad guy and those are absolutely terrifying, okay? Satan Batman from Batman in Bethlehem, Vampire Batman from Red Rain, Batman the Merciless from Earth -12, Red Death, and the most iconic, the Batman Who Laughs. When he was a boy, Bruce Wayne watched his parents get killed in an alleyway, and then everything went sideways for this version of Batman when the Joker started a killing spree across Gotham. The clown had discovered that he was dying from the same chemicals that had turned him into what he was and wanted to take everyone with him. He killed all of Batman's enemies, including Penguin, Catwoman, Killer Croc, and the ventriloquist. He also killed Commissioner Gordon, who accidentally sprung an acid trap in his notebook that melted his face off. And then after bombing a hospital and recreating the scene of Bruce's parents' death in front of him multiple times, Batman lost control and snapped his neck. Unbeknownst to Batman though, the Joker exhaled a toxin that was contained within his heart, which infected anyone close to him if he had died, which in this case was Batman, causing him to snap and basically become the new Joker. We all know the story of the Batman Who Laughs, but yeah, that's enough to put him on this damn list. Okay, it's Batman but bad. That's terrifying. But ultimately, in number 2, Joker. The Joker has undergone many revisions since his 1940 debut. The most common interpretation of the character is that of a man who, while disguised as the criminal Red Hood, is pursued by Batman and falls into a vat of chemicals that bleaches his skin, colors his hair green, and then his lips red and drives him insane. I don't know how one vat of chemicals can bleach your skin, turn your hair green, and then your lips red, especially because your lips are your skin, but oh well. I guess that's just because he's crazy? The reasons why the Joker was disguised as the Red Hood and his identity before his transformation have changed over time. However, the lack of solid, consistent origins is the only part of what makes the character so mysterious. During the Darkseid War storyline, Batman uses Metron's Mobius chair to find out the Joker's real name, and the chair answers with quite the revelation. In the DC Universe Rebirth one-shot, Batman informs Hal Jordan that the chair told him that they were 3 individual Jokers and not just one. The revelation is the basis for Batman the miniseries 3 Jokers, where it's revealed that there were 3 Jokers that were working in tandem, including the Criminal, which was a methodical mastermind based on the Golden Age Joker, the Clown, which was a goofy prankster based on the Silver Age Joker, and the Comedian, a psychopathic killer based on the modern one. So yeah, when there's 3 of you, you're kind of gonna be at the top of the list, okay? And that's also partially why people love him so much. And finally, in at number 1, Deathstroke. I know that you're all gonna be mad at me putting Deathstroke over the Joker, but hear me out, okay? Being introduced in the new Teen Titans number 2 from 1980 as Deathstroke the Terminator, Deathstroke is often seen as the arch enemy of the Teen Titans. However, the character has also served as a villain for Batman, Green Arrow, and the Justice League, and is the main antagonist of Arrow Season 2. The show seems to have a more powerful version when talking about brute strength, since he has actually the Mirakuru within his system, which is a super soldier serum that was ironically found on the island that Oliver was stranded on and saved Slade's life. But after the Mirakuru is in his bloodstream, he develops serious anger issues, like even worse than me, and that's tied to his strength, and then he comes back into Starling City to get revenge on Oliver by killing everyone he loves and blah blah blah. But especially in the comics, Deathstroke is a terrifying character, like when he became a speedster in the Lazarus Contract from 2017, in which Wally is captured by Slade and finds himself bound to a machine, forced to reveal his secrets as he runs. Unbeknownst to Wally though, Slade manipulated him using a verbal technique to extract confidential information, and then he offers him a solution. Assist him in altering the past to save his son, and in return he will abandon his life as Deathstroke. But he doesn't, and then Deathstroke basically takes the Speed Force, which is nuts.
In at 10, Green Goblin. In his pursuit for ultimate power, Norman Osborn devised a plan to unite all of New York's independent gangs under his leadership, aiming to establish himself as the most formidable gang lord in the city. To assert his dominance and gain notoriety, he targeted Spider-Man as his chosen victim and dispatched 2 criminals, Scorcher and the Headsman, to eliminate the web slinger. Their failure though led Osborn to adopt a persona reminiscent of a childhood nightmare, transforming into the Green Goblin. However, the chemicals that he used caused the Green Goblin to become a separate entity within Osborn's mind. As Norman's memories resurfaced, the Green Goblin persona sought to dominate him and defeat Spider-Man once and for all, this time employing a bomb filled with gas that nullified the hero's wall-crawling ability. However, Spider-Man outsmarted the Green Goblin again by leading him to a hospital room that had Norman's son, who was suffering from an overdose. Confronted with the dire consequences of his actions, Norman regained his sanity and returned to his normal state, temporarily, but of course, you can't get rid of the Green Goblin. You can't kill what's already dead. In at 9, Dr. Doom. Victor Von Doom, also known as Dr. Doom, is a Latverian politician and the ruler of the Kingdom of Latveria. He conceals his scarred face behind an iron mask and armor, and is renowned for his unparalleled intellect and scientific prowess. Doom is considered one of the brightest minds on Earth. In addition to his scientific abilities, he possesses formidable skills in sorcery, placing him among the most powerful magic users in the universe. So, I mean, with a slight caveat. I'll talk about that in a second. With ambitions of bringing bringing order to humanity through world domination, of course, Doom had clashed with superheroes and cosmic entities alike. He is most notably recognized as the nemesis of Reed Richards and the arch-enemy of the Fantastic Four, which is probably where he's getting the street-level title, and his initial encounter with the team involved capturing Sue Storm and coercing the others to retrieve the mystical Stones of Merlin through time travel. He later manipulated Namor into joining forces with him in an attempt to destroy the Fantastic Four, but then, after sacrificing the reanimated body of his first love that he was using as a familiar, Doom gets her skin as his new armor, along with stronger magical powers, which he then uses to neutralize the Fantastic Four. Eventually, though, Reed ends up taunting Doom enough for him to anger the demons that he made a deal with to get the skin armor, which that's actually a thing. He was wearing the skin of his dead lover as armor, and as a consequence of angering those demons, Doom is taken to hell. This is not even a joke. This was an actual story, okay? And you all thought that Iron Man Jr. in the MCU was a weird storyline, okay? At least Peter didn't have to go to hell. Speaking of Spider-Man, in It Ain't Mysterio. From a young age, Quentin Beck developed a passion for movies and special effects, fostering a close bond with his cousin Maguire Beck. Quentin's father may not have been successful, but Maguire's father supported Quentin's interests by giving him his first movie camera. With this camera, Quentin began making his own home movies and honing his skills in stop-motion special effects. As he grew older, Quentin became both an accomplished special effects expert and a skilled stuntsman. However, he grew frustrated with the lack of recognition that he was getting for his work. Desperate for fame, Quentin found inspiration when a co-worker jokingly suggested that he use his expertise in special effects to become a costumed villain and take down Spider-Man. The suggestion sparked an idea in Quentin's mind, pushing him down the path of becoming an infamous villain that he had always wanted to be. I have him on this list mostly because I wanted to be a special effects artist. I used to do stop motion videos. I got a camera and I started making really bad effect videos. This is basically me, except my name is not Quentin Beck, and I'm also not currently a supervillain, although I am probably going through my origin story right now. And at 7, Kingpin. The early life of the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, remains shrouded in mystery. He's described himself as an unpopular and overweight child who later dedicated himself to bodybuilding, but that's yet to be really solidly confirmed. Growing up in poverty though, Fisk claims that his father was an addict, and that he committed his first kill at the age of 12. Fisk was driven to excel in everything that he pursued, believing that physical strength was crucial for gaining power in the criminal underworld. He extensively trained in various forms of combat and bodybuilding, focusing on sumo wrestling, and his interest in these things would shape other aspects of his life. Despite limited formal education, Fisk became self-taught, miraculously consuming books on various subjects with a particular fascination for political science. Recognizing the significance of intelligence, Fisk realized that using political techniques could help him organize and lead a criminal enterprise. And by the age of 15, his adeptness at administration and organization earned him the moniker Kingpin of Crime. Where at 15, I was trying to remember where I put my phone, for God's sakes. I would not be able to be organized, let alone run a criminal empire, which is why I'm on YouTube and not Wall Street. Ha! And at 6, Rhino. Alexei, also known as Rhino, possesses a powerful armor that permanently was fused with his body. Resembling the hide of a rhinoceros, the scientists Igor and Gregory designed the armor based on a rhino's evolutionary traits for armored assault. Rhino's initial mission was to kidnap astronaut John Jameson, but he later turned on his employers and embarked on his own agenda. Spider-Man realized that Rhino had limitations in changing direction once he started charging, and exploited his lack of intelligence. Using his technical skills and agility, Spider-Man could defeat Rhino on various occasions, but sent him to a specialized correctional hospital where he was kept heavily sedated. Eventually, he ends up getting the skin dissolved, I'm pretty sure. Then he ends up getting the robot one that we also see in the Spider-Man PS4 game, and then in Miles Morales. But still, the dude's a freaking Rhino, okay? that you can't really get more than street when you're a rhino who's dumb and can only run in a straight line after you start charging. You can't really do more than that. You ain't gonna be fighting the Watcher, okay? Sorry, but it's true. Halfway through into number 5, MODOK. George Tarleton, also known as MODOK, the mental organism designed only for killing, was a technician working for AIM when he was transformed into a human computer by the Scientist Supreme. Yeah, I know, Sorcerer Supreme, Scientist Supreme. Come on, where's the Nachos Supreme? Where's the Fries Supreme? I want to know. I'm hungry, okay? I haven't had breakfast today. Relax. His brain was enlarged to grant him superhuman intellect, but his frail body couldn't handle the massive cranium, leading him to be confined to a life support unit called the Doomsday Chair. This process also bestowed him with psychic powers, fueling his ambition and ego. MODOK seized control of AIM and clashed with Captain America when he attempted to rescue Sharon Carter, and in the ensuing battle, AIM turned against MODOK and they all tried to escape. He initiated a self-destruct sequence, leaving them with only moments to escape the impending explosion, but a bigger brain doesn't mean that you're smarter. That's not how that works. If your brain gets bigger, you should see a doctor, okay? That's like an aneurysm or a tumor or something. Intelligence isn't the size of your brain. It's the wrinkles, I'm pretty sure. And if you like what we're doing here, also call a doctor. And also like and subscribe. In at 4, Red Skull. Upon becoming inspired by the Bellboy's loyalty, you're gonna censor it anyway, might as well say it fun, decided to mold him into the ideal German soldier and his right-hand man. Eager to comply with his superior's wishes, the bellboy, Johann Schmidt, accepted the offer. Initially, his leader subordinates attempted to train Schmidt as a regular soldier, which enraged his, let's call him his dad, even though he's not his dad, but I mean, I could say it, but people here don't want me to say it. Let's just say dad. That enraged his dad, which had a different vision in mind. Taking matters into his own hands, his dad personally oversaw Schmidt's training, providing him with a lifelike Red Skull-esque mask and calling him the Red Skull. The Red Skull became solely accountable to his dad and embarked on various missions that involved spreading terror, particularly in the United States before its entry into World War II. To counter the Red Skull's actions, the United States government created the persona of Captain America, who would become the Red Skull's main adversary in their ongoing conflict. But I think you know who I'm talking about when I say dad. Getting close to the end of number 3, Taskmaster. Tony Masters possesses the unique ability to replicate any observed movement, allowing him to learn various skills rapidly throughout his life. As a child, he quickly mimicked actions such as diving and mastering sports techniques that he was seeing on TV, and therefore joined S.H.I.E.L.D. as an adult. Tony's life took a turn though when he encountered a dying scientist who provided him with a syringe containing a German soldier's version of the super soldier serum that Captain America had. Injecting himself with the serum, Tony gained additional powers but suffered memory loss as his new abilities overwrote his personal recollections. His wife and partner, Mercedes Masters, devised a system to control and guide him as Taskmaster, utilizing muscle memory and reflexive tasks. Mercedes also kind of served as his handler, helping him to stay focused despite his continually changing memory. Taskmaster's past with S.H.I.E.L.D. and his personal connections, including his relationship with Mercedes, become a distant to him, and his new persona kind of took precedence, which is why he becomes evil. But also, being able to look at someone and recreate their abilities or whatever would be so freaking sick. I mean, I would probably also end up using it for evil, but I mean, come on. That would be great. But ultimately, in number 2, Ultron. Ultron is just, he's a dude, and like, or he's not a dude, he's a robot, but like, he's just a robot dude who doesn't really do much more. I mean, he definitely can, but he was still listed on the wiki as a street level, so there you go, okay? You know the story of Ultron. We're not gonna talk about the one that fights the Watcher after gaining all the Infinity Stones, because that's definitely not street level. But hey, normal Ultron, yeah, that's pretty street level. Not Allmaker Ultron, I'm pretty sure that's one of his names. None of those, okay? Just the normal Ultron that was like corrupt Jarvis, a street level. And you know what? He probably was just made out of a lamppost. And finally, in number 1, Carnage. Same reasons as Venom, kind of. I mean, like the fact that he's not really trying to destroy literally the galaxy is probably why he's considered to be a street level, despite also technically coming from space because he's the spawn of Venom. But also he merged with Cletus Cassidy, who was a serial killer. So yeah, after doing that, you're not really gonna want to do much else other than just kill people. So yeah, that's kind of it. A symbiote bonded with a psychopath who just wants to harm Earth, so you're not really gonna get much higher than the streets that you are literally turning red.